All right. And we are live.
Hey-o.
All right. This is going to be fun. Welcome, everybody. Karen is at a wedding, I believe. So we roped in our good buddy, Will Leach, to go host. Will, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Lenny. I appreciate it. I have not done a podcast in the research space for a while, so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun to bat around some ideas and talk all things insight. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Will and I, we've been buddies for a long time.
Yep.
He's just one of the coolest people that I know. He's does lots of stuff with Green Book. But Will, why don't you tell the audience just real quick about you overall?
Yeah, I am a research guru, fan, nerd, all those things. Grew up in the industry on the client side. I started my own company called Mind State Group about a decade ago. In fact, Lenny, if you believe it, more than a decade ago, about 12 years ago, after running insights, a couple of different functions at PepsiCo. So I'm in the behavioral sciences space, you guys. I study behavioral economics. I have a book on behavioral economics and behavioral sciences. And so my head is always thinking about how does human emotion influence decision-making. So that is my world. Work with lots of different companies all over the world, just trying to help them understand why people do what they do.
Yep. And if you have not read the book, that Marketing to Mind States, there's your plug for you. I have read it. I love it. It's a great book. So encourage everybody to do that. But I guess enough with those plugs. Let's dive in. We had a bunch of stuff this week. And normally we don't do, well, let's start out with kind of the appointments. Normally we don't talk so much about, hiring and decision-making, but there were a couple pretty high profile appointments this week that I thought were really indicative on kind of the strategic aspect of where the industry is going. So why don't I just rattle those off real quick and then we can go forward. So first, Patrick Comer, who has been the chairman of Cint Group, is now assumed the CEO role. So congratulations to Patrick Comer. Then second, Tim Wragg is the new CEO of Human8. So Camille Nikita, has stepped away. He's going to do some other stuff still on the board, where Patrick, who comes from a long, illustrious career at Kantar and at Miller Brown, is now assuming the global CEO role there. And then we saw Phil Ahad, who is now the Chief Innovation Officer at PureSpectrum. Phil was most recently at Taluna. So here was my take. Tell me what you think. I read these. These were strategic signals. Companies that are preparing for next level growth and changes in their businesses. Particularly if you look at PureSpectrum and Cint, the challenges that have had with sample quality, et cetera, in the marketplaces. There's that, but then there's also the demand now for new data quality for LLMs, et cetera, et cetera. I thought both those were they're prepping for this whole new world of data usage that doesn't have much to do necessarily with surveys. That will still be a piece of the business. And of course, the Human8, their private equity backers are coming near the end of their 5-year cycle. So bringing in somebody like Tim, who has experience with M&A, successfully sold Holland Partners to Escalent. That my guess is that was to help drive wherever happens next with them. So that was my take. What do you think? Yeah, Mr. Behavioral Scientist. Is there deeper nuances to capture from here?
Well, sometimes I look at these things as an entrepreneur, as I should, being an entrepreneur. And I think the signal it told me was that in the last couple of years, I believe we've been in this kind of fog of war. And you can make the case for the last 4 years. We've been in this fog of war where there's so much happening. It's volatile, uncertain, chaotic acquisitions, companies going broke, all this new technology coming in. And I think what had to happen was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, companies that size had to put their stake in the ground. Now, we may not know exactly what that stake was, But my guess is they put the stake in the ground. They bought a lot of companies. They changed brands. They're bringing in, they had different leaders to come and build out all this innovation. And the way I look at this is that these are big changes. And operational efficiency and excellence has to come now because they've made their investments. Now it's time to start paying off those investments. So as I looked at these, I mean, if you look at Patrick, I mean, the guy comes from major operational excellence background, right? He's had the big jobs before. He understands that company very well. So it made total sense they'd bring him in as the CEO to kind of integrate and kind of take the company from vision to excellence in operations so that you can do whatever you're going to do with it, whether you're going to sell it or whatever. So that was my take overall. I love the appointment on Human8. And the reason why is I am fascinated by this idea of human insights, as you know, I would be. And I believe like Material and probably Human8 are to me the closest thing to what I envision as being like a behavioral science McKinsey, or they have the ability to become a behavioral science McKinsey. And it's something I've always been fascinated with because I think there's a huge outage in consulting, research, data analytics, but from a human perspective. And the more AI is being used, at least from my clients, the largest clients out there are saying we're losing humanity. We're just losing our touch with people. And so I love the appointment of Tim in that because to me, it feels like it's getting closer to getting all 9 of these companies to, again, operational efficiency. But I'm hoping it's going to be in the space of my dream of like human behavior excellence, if you will, and just bringing that to the market. So I guess my only question on that one would be 9 companies to integrate, in the last couple of years is a tough job. And that's why I think we need somebody like Tim, who's come from Holland Partners, who's come from Kantar, who understands these big organizations. So again, operational efficiency, effectiveness, excellence. I keep thinking excellence because that's what you're going to have to do to get all the value out of all these acquisitions.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, man. I was not thinking at that pragmatic, level. And as soon as you say it, like, well, yes, these are big jobs across the board for everybody. So
those investments need to pay off soon, really soon. You can't keep envisioning the future. You got to start paying those off. And at least 2 out of the 3 make me believe, they're a little bit out of vision space. It's about getting profits out.
Yeah, agreed. Well, especially, I mean, since a public company, right? So that's, that's absolutely what drives them. So interesting times. I expect that we'll see more of that. Then we had a whole slew of new product launches, new company launches, even a little bit of M&A news. And I think let's start with the Behavix, which was launched by Hanu Verkasalo and Sarath Chatterjee from Verto. And Verto was one of the early behavioral data collection platforms, passive data collection platforms. They sold to Disco. And now Hanu's doubling down. But interesting, the model here appears to be that they're giving their tech to build a data marketplace, a behavioral data marketplace. This isn't about attitudinal data, about surveys. This is about observational and passive monitoring. And I just think that is really, really interesting. There's other companies that Curious and Disco and M4 and lots of other folks that are playing in that space. Luth, and I think the challenge always was we didn't know what to do with that type of data per se. And now I think we have a better sense of what to do with it because it damn sure can power AI training sets for sure. Synthetic sample, et cetera, et cetera. So when you think about behavioral science, particularly, what's your take on the use case of behavioral data to help drive that human element in perspective?
Yeah, I have 2 perspectives, I guess. The first thing is I can remember being on stage, I'm going to guess 10 to 12 years ago. I don't remember the conference I was at, but I'm pretty sure it was like 4 iterations of the head of insights for Procter & Gamble. I remember he was chief analytics officer. And I remember him saying that data will be democratized. And it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. They go, you won't have to pay for data in the future. The data is going to be realized. It's going to be out there for everybody. And now you'll just have to make insights. And you sit in the back and you get excited in the audience. This is literally a decade ago, this idea of democratization of data. But yet I don't think it really materialized because you can't commercialize it. I think it's hard to commercialize and frankly use. I think this was the first time when I read about this, I thought, okay, this is a nice step forward into the real democratization of data. I love their term. I'd never heard of it. Data as a service. That's a clear indication that they want everybody to have access to data, and they'll take it in, they'll give it free. I love this idea. So my first take is that this may actually be the first time that a company that maybe you're not in the top 100 Fortune 100 companies, right? But maybe all those other companies and even suppliers like me will have access to behavioral data. Why that matters for me is without behavioral data, I'm in the world of, I don't want to undersell this, but I pontificate a bit. Like I do good research. I hope I really understand human behavior, but ultimately it's very difficult for me to quantify using behavioral data to say what my informed opinion based upon insights and behavioral sciences. It's very difficult for me to prove the value. This allows somebody like me to see it actually translate out. And frankly, it makes me a better researcher because I can now gauge, I used to think that this is what mattered, right? In behavioral sciences, but the data is telling me something different. Those worlds have been separated in my world forever. And so I had to hopefully that a client would tell me, hey, your ideas really helped drive the business. It was a year and a half later when I get that. This hopefully democratizes it where people like me can actually prove their value. So it's a great launch.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're somewhat related note. Again, our friends at PureSpectrum introduced S2S Secure, fighting survey fraud. So it's a data quality play. This whole concept of ghost completes is a piece of that. So that's on the heels of what I think last week we talked about Forsta launching a similar product based on their platform. So to your point, data is becoming increasingly important across the board, and even the tried and true survey, we need to have capabilities that are helping to ensure that that is the highest quality data. And if we can't get that right, then how can we trust the behavioral data as well, right? We have to have trust in the data across the board. So glad to see companies taking that stuff seriously. Have you any stories that you have on the cost of bad data?
Not, it's funny, when I was using data in my days at Pepsi, I can remember, I won't name the sample company, coming in and warning us. Now, this was a decade ago, warning us about sample quality. And they kept talking about how our sample is better. And in the back of my head, I kept thinking, in fact, he said we should be paying more for it. And me being the client, I know this is the frustration for sample companies. I was like, that's your problem to fix. That's not my problem to fix. You're supposed to have good quality data.
Right. That's what the table stakes.
I didn't take it serious. I think of ourselves right now as fraud is the #1 threat to our industry. It is not AI. It is fraud, because it feels like it's been kind of secret for us researchers at clients teams. Like, sometimes, we understand that maybe there's some bias in the data. We understand that, but I think every time we do these political campaigns and when these forecasts don't come true, it becomes bigger to the C-suite. And my biggest fear for our industry is that day where a chief sales officer or a CEO says, I can't trust the data. And the day they lose trust in the data is when our industry falls. And I used to think, well, we could get better at modeling or whatever. I think this stuff is such a big deal about combating fraud. So I did have very bad data, I'm sure, many times, honestly. And I didn't know or I didn't care because I kept it in my mind thinking it's being handled. I'm so glad it's truly being handled. And that's really, I think, pushed by the sample companies, which is really cool, because I don't get the sense it was really being drawn from the clients. I really think it was just like, we want to be better researchers and a better industry, and they're pushing that on us. It's really good to see that kind of innovation happening.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The and there's a through line through some of these other launches that we look at this week. The first connected Forlight AI, a small business program with free access to analytics tools for freelancers and micro agencies. So that's cool. For qual data, and I think that is certainly one of the things that we've seen change. AI unlock the scalability of qualitative research, but it also, qualitative data is harder to bullshit. It's hard to fake.
That's right.
So the very nature of qual has a bit of a fix for the data quality.
That's built-in fraud protection. Yeah.
To an extent. I mean, it's not foolproof, and we know
Yep.
there's people who game the system, and but it's not as literal bots,
Yep.
right? The fraudsters are not quite that sophisticated yet.
Yeah.
So I think as we see platforms like this that are now free, qualitative analysis platforms being launched out there, is indicative of the increased use of qual across the board. They recognize that, so that's cool.
Yep.
Let's run through these other ones real quick. Another visualization platform, Discover reveals hierarchical topic maps, AI to effectively look at unstructured data.
Yep.
Stat Social expanded their footprint with Databricks Marketplace. Now, that Databricks is purely in the kind of AI training set, enterprise level data management space. That is what you're talking about, big data. That's what they do. And this is a multi-billion-dollar company. So now integrating that with social audience insights, it's an alternative data source, right? Again,
monetization.
Yes. So really interesting. We're seeing that data synthesis occur there. Similarly, HubSpot launched its free tool for AI discovery, which seems more like a secondary research tool. And then Bloomberg Terminal has integrated Polymarket, which is a news analysis platform effectively to help predict market trends. And so I ran through all those really quickly because in my mind, the through line was data has been democratized. There's lots of ways to get to data that can address very specific use cases. And a lot of the silos of synthesizing and connecting those things are being brought down across the board, and allowing more and more people to access the information, to access more and more information, and not just in the market research space, right? Within HubSpot, you could access tools that previously you would have gone externally, or than Bloomberg, right? to that. So that we're not synthesis of the data, but also synthesis of the data economy. I don't know. That was my take.
I'll build on that. So I saw two things with those particular announcements. The first thing is that there is a blurring of verticals that I never would have thought, but there is absolutely, like, to think to yourself that HubSpot could, I mean, when you look at it, when you read between the lines, you could make the case that HubSpot could help do your brand tracking for you on that announcement. Like, they could, like, and it's probably not, it's probably not too far. When you're doing sentiment analysis, awareness, things like that, that is typical brand tracking stuff. HubSpot is getting in that space. Bloomberg, same, I think. When you're talking about predictive markets, that is about forecasting, or they have the ability. So first thing I thought was blurring of verticals, where these large, massive companies are looking to monetize their expertise and their data to people like us in the research space, which also makes you can make the case that perhaps maybe the research space should be moving into those areas as well and selling. So there should be kind of a communal, I bet that we're going to see is a way of communal, building of these data sets. And then the second thing, what I took away from this is not just the blurring, but I kind of believe that we're going to start moving into a space, especially when we talk about AI, are you familiar with Shopify, right? For small business, right?
Absolutely.
So when I need something, for my business, I don't go out and design or figure out how to build it myself. I go to Shopify, and I just basically think of, if you guys don't know Shopify, it's almost going to an app store, but it's for small businesses. And I go, oh, I need this. I need a chatbot. Oh, I need this. I need telephone services. Oh, I need this. I need predictive analytics. I can go to Shopify and get what I need. In fact, at the project level, if I really want to. When I see all of this blurring of verticals, it makes me believe the problem with all this stuff is that there's so much that the end user doesn't know what to do with it. So those firms that can figure out how to bring all this stuff together are going to be useful, or a HubSpot, or not a HubSpot, like a Shopify ecosystem. I'm going to go to a website and I'm going to go, you know what? I really need to know more about social media. I'm going to go grab that API, bring it into my data set. I'll go, I better have really advanced forecasting. So let me bring in the Bloomberg thing, and I want to do predictive analytics. So I think there's this ecosphere, I think, that's going to have to be built to be able to allow the end user to just pick and choose what they need for that one particular project. And when I see things like this, I can envision that happening.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Agree with you. And I'm sure that, there's companies out there. Well, Nielsen's Marketing Cloud, Stagwell's Marketing Cloud. I mean, those are not just data assets. There are apps, so to speak. But like companies like LiveRamp, that make data accessible through one platform.
Yeah.
So I agree. I'm sure that a lot of the larger, I'm sure our friends at Zappy are thinking that way. I mean, they're positioned in all of those platforms similar to that. We're positioned to do that. So interesting times, to say the least. There's actually, I'll do a little plug, started to analyze the latest grit data this week, and there's some evidence there that this is already happening.
Wow.
So at least in terms of how buyers think about things.
Okay.
So,
because it's already happened. We're so used to it with our phones and building up apps and things like that to make our phone optimized for what we need. I guess it's just human nature. We follow predictable things, and we've already made that leap as a human level. And now we're just going, my TV has apps all over it that I can pick and choose and bring to TV stations. So yeah, why not? Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes good sense. I guess last and that's actually before we move into all the AI all the time stuff to wrap up. The Quest Global Research Group acquired Coleman Insights. Quest is kind of known as the sample company. Coleman Insights is primarily kind of media measurement and tracking. So I see that as another synthesis play. This makes sense to kind of combine these assets. Coleman had been a client of Quest for a long time, I suspect, and unlocking more data, drive more value, have a better mousetrap to understand attribution, things like that. That was my read. I think we'll see more things like that as well.
Yep, me too. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on OpenAI. So what
else would we talk about on this show?
Yeah, I know. But it's because you can't escape it. So the first one is just kind of fun, but or not, depending upon how much you watch Black Mirror. The OpenAI, or one of their subsidiaries, launching a humanoid robot, Neo Beta. It's built by 1X, company backed by OpenAI that raised $100 million in funding.
Just like that.
Yep, just like that. To build a household robot. It does cleaning, moving furniture, carries objects, pours beverages. I mean, basically, it's, you might as well call it Jeeves. So kind of your household butler. Only weighs 66 pounds. It can run 7.5 miles per hour. So this.
We're there.
We're there. I mean, Rosie the robot. Ran the flying cars, Jetsons era. We're finally getting there, and they're launching this year. I mean, they're putting robots
in people's homes. That's right.
This year. So, I mean, that's where they said it. They said it 2 years ago. The goal of all of the AI training sets was to move towards robots. So, and. Tesla certainly doing similar stuff, taking all their self-driving car technology and all it's towards, what is it, Optimus, they call it, all moving towards robots. And what are the implications then across the board? I mean, I certainly could think about, it'd be cool to have a robot helper on the farm, but then, I saw Maximum Overdrive too many times as a kid, so.
Great reference, man. Nobody will understand that. Well, maybe some people on the show will understand that.
Look it up if you haven't seen it.
Get it.
Yeah. Anyway, thoughts on what are the behavioral, what are the broader behavioral implications for humans in this massive potential adoption of like robots, real physical robots in our homes, working with us, doing stuff.
Yeah. So my son just was starting to play a game called Detroit, Becoming Human. And the concept of the game is that there are androids in society, in Detroit in this case, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure kind of deal. And you're solving mysteries, but the story behind the scenes is that they look very similar to us. I mean, you could tell they're a little bit robotic by design. There's like a little blue chip. But there's this thing around, wait a minute, when androids gain consciousness in this video game, is there the desire from their point of view for mutual coexistence or violent rebellion? Here's why. Because the humans, when they get these they don't see robots and androids as being human, so they treat them very poorly. Hey, go clean up my crap. You're gonna mop these floors. I'm gonna punch you. I'm gonna berate you, because that's kind of human nature, I think. And so as this happens, if there's ever kind of, we laugh about this, but if there's consciousness in the game, it's very much, finally there's conscious, like, I don't want to be treated like this. I don't want to be punched. I don't want to be abused verbally or whatever. And so that the game, you're navigating that. But the big question to me is this: as a behavioralist, I can tell you the easy thing is like, will they take our jobs? That's an easy, okay, we could talk about that. I think there's a more societal thing we need to consider. So what is our purpose in life if we have androids doing many of the things we don't like to do? So I get great satisfaction, Lenny, out of mowing my lawn. I don't necessarily like it, but I get satisfaction. It brings me some feeling of completion or whatever. What happens when you have somebody who will be on 24 hours a day, who can mow your lawn, clean your clothes, wash the dishes, cook for your child, become your child's tutor, become your child's confidant? You see where we're going? What happens, I think, from a behavioral perspective, is that we love to be lazy, everybody. It is a biological thing that happens to us.
Look at Wall-E. I mean, that's where we're going.
Yes. So for me to believe that, well, this will do all this stuff so I can be a better parent, what you will find is that people are like, yeah, I could talk to my kid about how they're feeling, or I could watch football. And we will tend to entertain ourselves in almost all, I hate to say this as a parent, but we're self-natured. We just are. And so I think to myself, what becomes of our purpose in life when we actually start giving more and more of our purpose to robots? And then what does that say for us? Like, where do we find meaning? And so I'm not even talking about like, we're going to have to find better jobs. Like, I won't need a moving company, Lenny. I'll have my Android move my stuff for me. I don't need a handyman. So there's job implication. But I think there's this idea of the purpose in life, and where we're going to find purpose. And I think the more we kind of outsource to robots over time, the less purpose we're going to have. We're going to see a lot more depression. We're going to see a lot more kind of anxiety, things like that, because we're going to lose our sense of humanness. And once you go down that path, it's hard to come back. I would say that.
I agree. And shameless geek plugs here, right? If you have not read Isaac Asimov, particularly the iRobot series, or the Foundation and Empire books. I mean, incredibly visionary, and so far looking pretty damn right.
Really? Oh, I got to do that.
Oh yeah, and explored these type of ideas, right? But even Wall-E. It's introduced it. My three kids are now old enough that we watched The Matrix with them last weekend.
Yeah. Wow.
And despite being such a great fun movie from an action standpoint, there's some deep philosophical stuff, similar topics in that. And guys, here we are in the pragmatic aspects for us. To your point, it's not just mowing the lawn, but doing our shopping for us, right? Functioning as an agent, in doing things as researchers we want to understand. But now there's an intermediary.
Oh, I love that perspective. Yeah. So who are we researching? Yeah. Who's our customer? Right. Oh my God. That's so great. Right.
So, we have, okay, I have my robot that's doing these functions for me. There's a research question. It's programmed with my preferences. So do you need to talk to me? Do you need to talk to the robot? Yep. So, I mean, literally, maybe it's an AI agent that exists on, a piece of software, or maybe it actually is physically incarnated in a, ambulatory humanoid, right? Guys, here we are, because $100 million invested just like that to do that. And that's a drop in the bucket compared to other pieces, other investments that are happening. That's just OpenAI.
Yep.
And let's go on real quick, because all that's part of OpenAI, and now trying to raise, do another raise with $100 billion valuation.
And they're not profitable yet, right?
They are not.
They're not profitable yet. They're still losing money in the billions, but they're still able to raise that kind of money. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So it's still projected to lose $5 billion by end of year. So their ARR surpassed $3 billion earlier this year.
Yep.
200 million weekly active users of ChatGPT. But ChatGPT costs $700,000 a day to run. So it's spending $8.5 billion on AI training and staffing. Now, so great article, Tech Buzz. Yeah, thank you, Carly. But it also, this went into their announcement of their next two programs. So Strawberry, which said to possess superior reasoning capabilities in solving complex problems. So more thinking time for complex tasks. And so I'm reading the piece here. It's part of their planned AI agents project Orion by automating multi-step tasks more effectively. So that's coming. So part of this valuation is where we have this coming. But then on top of that, they also announced GPT Next. And that's exponentially more powerful than its predecessor, GPT-4. The 100-fold improvement in performance. So are they worth $100 billion? Valuation? I would argue probably yes, if these solutions do that and are aligned to specific business issues rather than just kind of blanket, efficiency gains and all this cool stuff that everything does. And we're seeing that now develop where there's, it is becoming the operating system for almost every technology out there that addresses very specific things. So anyway, thoughts on that?
I just think big companies, we gotta think to ourselves, when we see companies the size of OpenAI, NVIDIA, whatever, they are creating the future. Like a lot of us think we have to go figure out what the future's, what's happening. They are creating the future. Like if they invest in robots, Lenny, we're gonna have robots. Like it just
right. Follow the money. I mean, we don't have a choice in the matter. That's what's happening. Yeah,
you don't. And as researchers, we kind of know that. We look for trends or whatever. But when I was a researcher, we were looking for social trends. These social trends are actually being advanced by companies. These aren't societal trends. These are being advanced through technology. So I think it's important for us to recognize these are very clear indications of what our future is going to look like. And OpenAI, just like governments, just like countries, companies fall and collapse. But this company's gonna be here for a while, guys, and they're gonna set the agenda for what we're going to think is normal, and the artificial intelligence world, it is a fabric of our life. I don't even know how to describe it. It's not an industry. It's not going to be an industry. Right. It's not a tool. It's going to be in the fabric of our lives in every way possible. You have to see. I think you have to see that's coming. Now, where it goes exactly, I don't know, but they're giving me pretty clear direction of. I know for sure we got some robots coming up in our future. Right. We have multi-agent systems coming up in our future. I do know I can see that, and I can see a lot more collaboration in our future. So, what that means to you personally, that's for you to figure out as a brand.
Absolutely, and we've been harping on this, Karen and I, for the entire show to our audience, especially in the research space. The adoption is still relatively low. We can keep standing on the sidelines all we want. The train is still going, period. To your point, and at some point we're just going to have to jump on and deal with it. Make personal choices. I don't think we're going to buy a robot to work here on the farm. That'll be a personal choice. But my neighbor might. Well, they're Amish, so they probably won't. But but anyway, it's just all interesting. Are we we're running over? You and I are worse than Karen with going on. Three more things that are related to this, and let's just touch on them real quick. So all this future we're talking about, there are still kind of systemic issues that have to be dealt with. The great article on the spectrum of AI's created a battle over web crawling. That is effectively about access to data. So, that is the challenge here. So 100-time improvement on GPT Next compared to 4. that also has to have tons of more data to be able to drive that. So it goes back to the very beginning of our conversation, right? There is immense opportunity for data democratization to help drive the further development of AI because we're running out of public data.
Yeah, you have to feed the beast.
Yes. And to put that in other perspectives, Gartner report reveals that 1/3 of generative AI initiatives may be abandoned due to high costs and challenges demonstrating value. So that's a piece we have to start, really putting the rubber to the road and showing both efficiency and efficacy. And but the push to do that's not going to go away. Too much money's been spent. It's not going to be abandoned. It's just going to be, we just have to get better at it. And then in the UK, OpenAI appeals for copyright use. Again, same thing. It's access to data. So lots of complex issues that are rolling around in this, but none of those should be considered, in my opinion. It's not going to stop the train. No. So we're going
to find out how to feed data. They're going to figure it out because that is the whole reason for their being. So yeah, they're going to figure that out. It's going to be through legal, regulatory actions, or direct one-to-one. Like they're going to come to us as individuals and say, we just want to have access to things, to your thinking and your thoughts. And if you're a content creator out there, that could be really great for you. For me, like I think about that, I do a lot of my own content. That could be really, really good. The downside on this, the scary part, when I looked at the OpenAI appeals for copyright usage in the UK, I've had 3 people come to me, and they're younger. And what they've said is basically going, well, they're asking me whether or not I could use my models to help do some analysis for them. And they go, but they made little comments like, well, I could generate a prompt and do it myself. Lenny, that's scary for a person. I'm like, whoa. Like you're talking about my IP. And you know what? It's true. They kind of can. Why? Because my IP is out on the internet. And so it's happening. So I kind of like the idea of the regulatory nature of trying to help save or help protect some of my IP and my thinking so other people can't monetize it. And what I would tell you is that, especially younger generation, they weren't being nefarious, Lenny. They weren't being mean.
Right. It was just
like, oh, I'll just go and get it. It's on there. And I thought, wow, they don't realize what that means to me.
Right.
But so I love IP protection. I don't think it's going to save me for much longer. It's out there. I got a public book. I have public stuff out there all the time. Yeah. Somebody will monetize. They'll call it the mind stat model, and they'll take it. It's done. So within a little bit of reason. So anyways, they will feed the beast. Yeah. That data will be collected somehow.
Yeah. All right. On that rosy rosy view for the future, let's wrap up. Will, this has been fantastic. Love the perspective that you bring to this. Hopefully our audience has enjoyed that as well. Carly, we got a few plugs we need to make real quick as we head into fall conference season. Yep, there we go. IX Latin America right around the corner, literally this month. IX AI next month. And of course, we're already in full swing planning for IX North America in DC in the spring. Use the code exchange30 to get a 30% discount on general admission tickets to any of these events. That's it. We'll be back next week. Will, thanks, man. This was a blast. You're on the short list now.
All right.
So,
well, thanks for having me. It was a great conversation, Lenny. Now let's go off and read some of those books and watch some Black Mirror and feel even.
No, I can't. I gave up on Black Mirror. It was too much. So, but I will go back and maybe read some of the classic Isaac Asimov. But anyway, and read. Don't watch the shows or see the movies. Read the books.
Read the books.
So read the books.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Everybody, take care. Bye.
Thank you.